Hey everybody, time for another movie retrospective.
Yeah, Bride of Re-Animator.
Yeah, we're doing this one because we did Re-Animator a long time ago, and we also did Society, which was the movie that Brian Yuzna directed before this one.
I was shocked.
We also did Beyond Re-Animator too, didn't we?
Yeah, I was shocked because I had never seen this one.
Yeah, you thought you had seen it, but then when we started watching it, you hadn't seen it.
I thought I'd seen all the Re-Animator movies.
Yeah.
And I was watching this one, and I was like, oh, man, I don't remember this. I don't remember this. And I had never seen the movie.
Well, now you have.
I'd heard of it. I thought that I saw it.
Yeah.
But I didn't.
Well, yeah, like I said, it is actually. This one came out in 1990. Stuart Gordon did not direct it. I believe he wanted to, and he had a whole bunch of ideas about what the next story was going to be and stuff like that. But apparently, the timeline for it was not long enough for his liking. He wanted 6 months to kind of work on the script and stuff, and they were like, yeah, no, that's way too long. So they gave it to his longtime partner, Brian Yuzna, who, as I said, had been producing the Re-Animator movies, and he's directed the very weird body horror movie Society. Only a couple years prior to this.
Pretty good one. I like that one.
Yeah, we reviewed that one as well.
I think I like this one better, but
not too long ago. I think I do as well. This one, okay. So the thing is, yes, it's a sequel, and it's actually a continuation of H.P. Lovecraft's novella. Herbert West Re-Animator. This is kind of focuses on, I think, the 5th and 6th chapters of the novella. That's why at the beginning of the movie, Dr. West and his little partner in crime are in Peru, gathering body parts, from soldiers and stuff like that. Because that's why I don't remember if it was Peru in the book, but that's what they were doing at that point in the story was they were doing that. So even though it doesn't really have anything to do with the rest of the movie, they just kind of wanted to put it in there.
And no explanation of how they got there or who they were fighting for, what the war was about, but they were just working on some soldiers. There were some Peruvian soldiers there. And
it
was just an excuse to show you a cool scene right before the credits.
Yeah, it was just a good cold open, you know what I mean? That, like I said, they could say was paying homage to the original story, even though it doesn't really have anything to do with the plot.
Yeah.
So this one takes place 8 months after the events of the first movie. Now, the funny thing about this is that, so continuity, not really an issue. Because a lot of that's what I mean. And it's funny because Brian Yuzna, I saw a little bit of an interview with him about that. And he's like, and as it turns out, who cares?
Yeah. The tone of this movie is very much like Evil Dead.
Yeah.
Or Ash versus Evil Dead. It's a silly horror movie with a lot of fucking silly, crazy ideas. It was the kind of shit that would trip us out when we were kids back in 1990.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because they were showing you stuff you had never seen before, really, and they didn't care if they didn't really have the budget to make it look realistic. It didn't matter. It had a very colorful color. It had a really colorful palette. The color palette was almost kind of like a giallo movie, and it was almost shot kind of like a comic book movie of the era. Almost kind of like Creepshow.
Yeah, they definitely... This one, it's I don't want to say... I mean, it still has a comedic tone to it. Yeah. I don't know if it's... I'd say it's quite as zany as the first one. Because this one definitely has homages to the Universal monster movies of the 30s and 40s. So it's has a lot more of a gothic thing going on in it. And I don't think the humor is quite over the top. But it might be gorier than the first one.
Yeah,
I think it probably might be.
Yeah, more stuff happens in it.
I mean,
it was trying to top the first one.
Yeah, and
I can't believe I didn't see it.
I can't believe you didn't.
I guess I had just joined the army. When in 1990 did this actually come out? Did it give you a month?
No.
All right, I must have been real close to joining the army. Didn't hear about it. We would have rented this instantly.
Well, yeah.
I didn't know about it. I'd heard about it later on, and I just assumed I had seen it.
Yeah.
Because you know how it is, sometimes I'll confuse two movies together. It all just kind of, there's no reason to really remember these movies line by line. Not for me. I just watched them as a kid, you know what I mean? So.
Well, yeah, I mean, unless you saw them a whole bunch of times.
Right.
Or unless they made a huge, gigantic impression at the time.
I was watching it and I was like, I don't remember this. Or, man, I don't really remember that. Then I'd see something brand new and I've never seen this.
Well, it's weird because it's I saw this one back in the day, maybe in the early 90s. I don't think I saw it in the theater, but I didn't remember it. I must have only seen it once because I didn't remember it as well as the first Re-Animator, because that one I saw like a whole bunch of times, like on cable and stuff. But this one, like I said, there's no continuity or anything like that, because if you'll remember at the end of the first movie, Dr. Hill, the guy who's was the animated head.
Yeah.
His head pretty much got smushed at the end of the first one, right? Because didn't that other zombie like squish his head and like throw it against a wall and it turned into jelly or something?
Been a long time since I've seen
that.
But
in this one, his head is just as fresh as Daisy, and it's still like brand new and comes back like haunting Dr. West. Even though the funny thing about it is that he doesn't really. He's not like really the main antagonist, I don't guess. He's just kind of like in the movie. It's it's almost, I don't want to use the word shoehorned in, but the reason that he's in there is because the actor David Gale called up Brian Yezda and said, "Hey, you making another Re-Animator movie? I want to be in that shit." Yeah. So it's like he's like, all right. So he just wrote him in there, even though his head got mushed in the last one. And it's like there's no reason for him to be in there, really. But
in the context of the late '80s and early '90s, no, that was fair. That was fair game, because the fans of the first movie just wanted to see the dude again. They didn't care if it didn't make sense.
Well, that's what I mean. So it's like, and Brian Yezda didn't care. It's like he just called him up, and they didn't think like, oh no, what are we gonna do? His head got smushed in the last one. It's like, but they were just like, whatever.
It's not what these movies were for. You're either getting drunk or getting high or something at home with the VHS, you and your buddies, and talking about some girl you went to high school with. You're gonna have a date with her next week, something like that. That was what it was like during those days.
Yeah. But the funny thing about this, okay, so like I said, this picks up 8 months later, and Dr. West and his little buddy there are working in Peru, and then they get attacked or some shit, like, there's some nice gore at the beginning. They get attacked or whatever, and then they subsequently go back to the hospital, like the Miskatonic University Hospital, and both get jobs there, even though they were the only survivors of the so-called Miskatonic massacre that happened at the end of the last. And you'd think that
they'd be suspects.
You'd think they'd be suspects or something. But again, it's like, it doesn't really, just don't worry about it. So they just came back, and they're totally working like totally normal doctors, like you do. And,
this is normal for the genre. I mean, that Ash versus Evil Dead and the Evil Dead series and everything, none of that shit. You'd have gone to jail if you were him.
Well, yeah.
You'd have gone to jail for many times over. If you were, running around with a chainsaw in your arm and killing zombies, and how are you going to prove that was a zombie?
Yeah.
And not, it was dead before I killed it. You can't. It doesn't work in the real world.
Yeah, so you just can't think about it too hard. Well, and I think the same situation here. It's like, I don't even think they have a throwaway line about it's like, oh, we were exonerated of all charges or whatever, because, clearly something.
What they do in this one is they take it up to the next level. Because in the first one, the beheaded doctor was still walking around. They thought about that. They said, well, what can we do with that concept? So later on, now you got Herbert West making monsters.
Yeah.
Putting a head on top of a leg and bringing that to alive. Taking a bunch of fingers and eyeballs and just putting those together real quick and turning those alive to make a little spider. Just shit like that.
Yeah.
Things that weren't really explored in the first movie. They're able to explore it in this one.
Because I think in the first one, Dr. West was more, and again, shout out to Jeffrey Combs. Yeah. I love Jeffrey Combs. Jeffrey Combs, if you're listening, I love you. It's like, he is just, I love that he just took this character and he just made it instantly iconic, because he takes it really seriously. Like, he gives like these really great like monologues and stuff like that. Yeah. And he's just this fucking great like over the top character.
Act. Yeah. One of my, not only is he great at Herbert West, but he was great in Star Trek? Was it Star Trek?
He played Shran, right?
Yeah, Star Trek Enterprise. He played General Shran.
Yeah.
He's one of the best Star Trek characters, of all times. He convinced me he was a military officer. He was like a blue General Patton.
Yeah.
He had me convinced.
Good in Castle Freak too, and he actually plays kind of a normal person in that one.
And then
he
was like on Deep Space Nine a lot. He played aliens.
Yeah. Because he's kind of a weird guy, but
he can do anything. And he
not
was
like Crispin Glover weird, but on that spectrum.
No. He even did a great job. And one of my favorite horror movies was Frighteners. And he played that creepy ass FBI agent. That was cool too.
I know. He just does really, like I said, he kind of has like a little bit of a Crispin Glover vibe, like not quite as weird as Crispin Glover, but he has, because he can act normally. Crispin Glover, I don't think, can act normally.
This is the way that good dude is.
But because I think he's just like that naturally.
He can act fucking spastic and creepy when he wants to.
Yeah, and he's really, really good at it. But he's also, like, really compelling to watch.
Yeah, you believe it. You buy into it.
So I feel like in the first movie, he was more concerned with, like, just reanimating the dead, like, with his reagent. Whereas in this one, maybe the reason they were in Peru was because didn't they go into that thing where, like, he had an iguana, and they said they took something from, like, the amniotic fluid, like, out of the lizard's thing, and, like...
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so
he made reagent out of that somehow.
He's making reagent out of... So I'm guessing this is, like, an improved reagent, because this can bring back just, like... one body part, and there's a whole thing about how, like, each body part has, like, its own consciousness, kind of.
Yeah, like the Thing, almost.
Yeah, so it's, like, essentially like that.
Yeah.
So, in this one, it feels like, yes, they're building up to, just like in Bride of Frankenstein, which is this is obviously an homage to, but he's building up to, you know, building an entire woman out of spare parts. Yeah. But along the way, he also seems to just make all these other little... creatures just for the hell of it, just because he wants to. Because
they don't chronicle all of that. They just show him make a couple of them. But towards the end, you realize they show you that he made a bunch of them.
Yeah, he's been like dicking around down in the cellar, like making all like the weirdest shit they could think of.
And of course, you know, they play it up, and he makes his version of the bride. You know, of course, she's hot. You know, he's got the legs of a hooker and this and
feet
that.
Of a ballet dancer. He's been stealing body parts.
Instead of just finding a hot girl, like. Reanimating her, he's got to take pieces and put them together. Like,
well, yeah,
like
it has to be a challenge.
Yeah, you know. And of course, she looks all looking like something out of some kind of bondage fantasy. She's partially skinned, and you can see ribs, but it's kind of artistic, almost kind of like a Cenobite. And she was in like a bridal outfit, wasn't she?
Sort of. It was kinda, like a shroudish kind of thing, just like in Bride of Frankenstein. It was like this gauzy kind of outfit.
So they had her all caked out and everything, you know. And that was towards the end, and of course that doesn't go down the way it's supposed to, you know. But kind of like Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah, that's definitely what this is homaging. Like I said, not only the H.P. Lovecraft story, but. You know, the chapter 4 and 5 specifically of Herbert West Re-Animator.
Well, I think Herbert West might have been inspired by Dr. Frankenstein.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Lovecraft, you know, he read all the classics.
Yeah.
So I think basically he's a knockoff.
Well, I think Elisa, pretty much any mad scientist is kind of like an homage. I mean, because Dr. Frankenstein.
I'd have to see what
mad scientist.
I'd have to see what Lovecraft originally wrote. I've never read anything about it. I heard that he just mentioned him a little bit.
Yeah.
In other stories, you know what I mean. I haven't read what Lovecraft wrote about Herbert West.
Yeah, it's a whole novella. I read it, but it was a long time ago. Okay. I have it over there. I have like a book with all his fiction in it. That
friend of mine, this is like way back in the day. I think he told me that he thought that he was just mentioned a few times.
Yeah.
In H.P. Lovecraft stories, but you would know more than me.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's been a long time since I've read this particular novella.
Because it's funny because this would all be you could copy all this. It's in public domain. So why hadn't somebody come out with an H.P. Lovecraft's Re-Animator, you know, Herbert West Re-Animator movie just like the book or the novella? I think there'd be a bunch of
You know what? I feel like that would probably happen because, I mean, look at all the, like, Stephen King adaptations they've been making. Like, you know, all of the Stephen King adaptations pretty much, like, the last couple of years. So early next year, they're doing an adaptation of the Lovecraft story, The Color Out of Space. So if that does well, maybe that will kickstart, like, a whole...
Yeah.
And there have been, like, some kind of popular, like, last couple of years, some kind of popular Lovecraftian movies, like, not based... specifically on Lovecraft stories, but in that mythos kind of thing, like The Void and stuff like that. So I feel like maybe it's Lovecraft's moment, you know what I mean? But we'll see how The Color of Space
Hollywood's
does.
running out of properties. They're burning them all up so bad, they're going to have to come up and do something.
And interestingly, too, in January, they're making another adaptation of Henry James' The Turn of the Screw. So maybe they're kind of going back to, like, a lot of classic horror, which I don't have a problem with that, really. Because there's, like, a lot of really good shit, like, in the public domain that would make really good movies. And you don't got to pay nobody for the rights. Yeah. And you don't got to pay a screen. Well, you still got to pay a screenwriter because they still have to adapt it and shit like that, like for modern audiences. But yeah, so the whole thing comes about, like the whole creation of the Bride of Re-Animator comes about because from the first movie, you know, Barbara Crampton's character, she did not return for this one. because her agent, apparently after Re-Animator happened, because I love Barbara Crampton too, she's totally rad. But after Re-Animator, her career actually kind of started to take off. She was on like a big soap opera, maybe it was Days of Our Lives, I can't really remember. But her agent told her not to do the Bride of Re-Animator sequel. She said, "Oh, you're too big for that now, and
right.
It's just like you're too classy for that." So she was like, "Well, okay," and she didn't do it.
Little do those pranksters know that these movies like this stay around forever.
That's what I mean. These horror movies are eternal, and we talked about this before.
If it's over the top, it will never be forgotten.
Yeah, it's like everyone will remember you, and it's like 30 years from now, you'll be like an old lady with a walker at a horror convention, and everybody will come up and want your autograph.
These movies are old, and I want to buy them all on Blu-ray.
Yeah,
but it's hard to get them on Blu-rays because it may be licensing conflicts or something. Sometimes you can't get them all together.
Yeah,
and like you get the movie, and there's 4 different slightly different versions of it on Blu-ray.
Yeah, I believe very recently Arrow just did like a 3-disc Blu-ray of this. It looks really nice, and it's been like all restored. They have like the unrated version, they have the theatrical version.
Yeah, and they
have all these fucking extras and stuff on there, and really, really nice packaging and stuff like that.
Anything Re-Animator's expensive.
Yeah,
I mean, you expect to pay like $60.
Well, they're
for a damn
classics.
Steelbook,
And
you want the Steelbook, kind of deal, or kind of like
if you're gonna get
Dagon,
it,
what I mean? Like
if you're gonna get it, get the nice. I really do like those Steelbooks. Those are like really nice. We have a bunch of those.
Yeah, if I'm gonna get them, I want Steelbooks.
Yeah, I mean, they last longer too.
Version.
They're more,
Yeah.
They're more.
Well, there's more extras in them.
That too.
And they're just better to look at.
And the artwork is really nice. Like they've done a really good job.
We're from a generation where we like to have a physical product. You buy it, you actually have it.
Yeah.
In your hand. Nobody can take it from you.
Well,
and if you lose your internet connection, you can still watch it.
Then you can still watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the whole creation of the Bride initially comes about. Well, I mean, let's act like Dr. West wants to do it anyway, but he tries to get his buddy on board by saying that he still has Megan's heart that he stole from that was the only piece of her left from that was Barbara Crampton's character. That was the only piece of her left from the Miskatonic Massacre. So, as weak-willed as his fucking buddy is, he's always kind of like horrified, but then he's like just kind of wanting to go along with it. There's like the two guys, it's like there's like a weird relationship between the two of them, because it was in the first one as well, because it seemed like he was almost like Dr. West was almost like jealous of his relationship with Megan. And it's kind of like that in this one too, because in this one, even though he's still like pining over Megan who died, he's gone after like this new woman. He's kind of sort of dating this new woman. So there's kind of like this really weird, like I said, there's really no through line of like, there's a plot and there's like a narrative thing, but it's like sometimes characters like do one thing in one scene and then they do the opposite thing in the next scene, and it's like, just don't fucking worry about it. It's
probably been things I think were edited out.
I think they were,
and I think certain things might have been edited in. And like I said before, I think there's like 3 or 4 different versions of each one of these movies, depending on where it sold, what the market was, and what kind of rating they had to go for. I think that had a lot to do with some of the confusion that is there, what you see, but it doesn't matter. The tone of the movie allows for it. You're not watching it for the reasons of like, continuity and to make sense. This is not, I mean, it makes sense. Yeah. But certain details, kind of really don't jive. But it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Like I said, it's just kind of the thing where you have Dan, the friend, and he's kind of like still sad about Megan dying. Because like I said, it's only been 8 months, so it hasn't been that long. He's still sad about that, and he's like, he'll never find anyone to replace her and blah, blah, blah. But then he's also kind of like dating this new woman, and he's also kind of in love with this patient, of like this terminal patient. Yeah. That's dying, like one of his patients in the hospital. Yeah. So he's got all kind of shit going on, and he's like doesn't know what to do.
He ends up mixing all these women together into one body, and then puts Barbara Crampton's heart in there. Barbara Crampton's heart because Herbert West had this theory that each cell had its own life, and so her life force would still be in it. He's bullshitting. He's just trying to make. If you ask me,
I think he was just trying to get Dan on board.
He's just trying to make a damn. Just trying to make a damn Frankenstein.
He's like, this is the only part of her that will like still live.
Yeah, towards the end, you got the Bride of Frankenstein running around. But she, the Bride of Re-Animator, but it's a Bride of Frankenstein type creature. And then you got the old dude showing up, headless guy showing up, and he's implanted bat wings on the side of his head.
Yeah, he got that other weird doctor.
Yeah, there's another doctor that's reanimating too.
That dude. That reanimated reanimated Dr. Hill's head.
Yeah.
Because he's like, hey, free head, and he took it to his office, and he's like, hey, free glowy stuff and a thing, and he injected it, and it came
I see reviews about movies like this from younger guys, and they're all, and the reviewers like, what the fuck happened to this movie? What were people thinking? People were not thinking the way you think now. They were just fun.
Yeah, this is just a fun movie.
It wasn't supposed to be reality.
And it's a showcase for the gore.
Yeah.
And, just to see how over the top they could go. You could tell, like I said, particularly in the little subplot, if you want to call it that, of Dr. West, just for shits and giggles, making all these monstrosities.
Yeah.
Just hey, I'm going to sew an arm to a leg.
Yeah.
And then, bring it to life just because.
And imperfections.
And it kicks him and stuff.
Imperfections in the executions of the movies and in the effects, that didn't bother us at all. That added to the charm. We liked it.
That's what I mean.
We knew that was stop motion.
Yeah. Although that is really good stop motion.
Yeah,
the fingers and the eye is really good stop motion.
And then, there was, even in certain classic, movies like Evil Dead, if you pay attention, you can see the top of the set. It's in the shot.
Yeah.
You can see the wall. The wall does not meet a damn ceiling. You know what I mean? But people still forgave it. It didn't matter.
Well, when the movie is entertaining and fun, and you can tell that the people made it were super into it, and they were having fun.
They're just trying to entertain you.
And they're just trying, and it's so...
Yeah.
It's kind of, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's kind of like you said, it just kind of adds to the charm of it. And
yeah.
stuff. But I have to say that, all of those creatures are
super
fun because you could tell that the whole fucking, effects crew, it was Screaming Mad George, who also did Society, and a bunch of other effects crews. I think maybe K&B worked on it too. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they did. And you could tell they were just trying to, they're hey, let's make a thing that's part cat and with a snake butt, or let's make this, that, and the other. And there's, you know what I mean? Let's take Dr. Hill, but we'll put bat wings on him so he can fly.
These movies were basically jokes, and you were in on the joke, and they knew you were in on the joke. You were there. It was a team effort.
Yeah.
It was a team effort.
And the one thing that kind of, because I hadn't seen this in a long time, and one thing that kind of startled me about it is wow, really bad things happen to some animals. Not really, but I mean, really bad things happen to some animals in this movie. Not only does that poor big fruit bat get its wings cut off with a scalpel, and then later they
weren't real animals.
No, they're not real animals. This isn't like Cannibal Holocaust. Yeah. Don't get alarmed.
They weren't real.
But and then the wings get sewed onto Dr. Hill's severed head.
Yeah.
But also, that one character that Dan Kane is dating, that journalist or whatever the hell she is, her dog gets killed by one of the zombies, and it pulls his leg off or some shit.
Yeah,
I was God damn!
It threw it up against the wall, and that fucked it up pretty bad.
And then of course Herbert West was oh, can't waste this dog, so he takes the dog and puts a human arm on the end. It's it breaks it back to life and shit.
It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. Like I said, just sit back and let it roll over you. Yeah. It's like I said, I don't think it's as narratively cohesive as the first one. It's not as simple as the first one. The plot in this one is a little overstuffed. There's kind of a lot of stuff that's going on that doesn't really need to be in. Dr. Hill doesn't need to be in there, with the head and everything.
Everything is an excuse to show you some kind of a gimmick.
Right, that's why. It's just kind of they were whatever, we're just going to put it all in there.
In the thinking of the time, part 2 was going to have to top part 1.
Yeah.
And it did. Looking back
particularly on the last the third act, which is really really good, when you see kind of all the weird creations that Dr. West has made in this tomb behind their lab, but also the design of the bride is fucking great. It's so good. It's one thing that I liked about when they're showing them over the course of the film constructing her. One thing that I like, and I saw another reviewer mention this as well, it's that it looks like that body could actually work the way they made it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? He made a little cooling system or whatever, and they're he put all these tubes in there to make all the blood go through. So he's making everything, and he has all these little metal joints sticking things together. So it looks like it could actually kind of function. I don't know if it could, but
now,
it
there
kind
are
of
two
looks
more
like
movies
that.
after this one, right? Or is it just one more?
There was one more, and then there were some other because we did Beyond Re-Animator.
Yeah,
we reviewed that as well.
Yeah,
that was the prison one.
That was the prison one, and that one I think even tops this one. So they progressively
They just wanted to get it gorier and gorier.
And they did get better. I think they got better.
I still like the first one the best, but they each have their charms.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I have to say that, like, the construction, like, when the bride wakes up, and, like, the last scene of her, you know, because at first Dan seems like he's kind of into it, but then he has, like, the live girlfriend, and she's like, what the fuck is this all? Like, she would stay with him after she saw that, but whatever. So it's like, so she's like, what the fuck is this? And then there's, like, this weird jealousy thing between the living woman and the bride. Yeah. And then it's like, you know what I mean? And then Dr. West is, like, saying the bride was, like, superior because they made her and all this other kind of stuff. And so, and he gives his, like, you know, he's better than God kind of speech, which is really super awesome. Yeah. And it's like, but then Dan seems to, like, have a change of heart. And like I said, it's one of those things where it's like one scene he's like, oh yay, and then he's like, oh yeah, because never mind, and he calls her a monster. Yeah. And then she gets like really upset about it, and you know, she's like, what do you want from me, what do you want? And it's like she says like she understands that all he wanted was the heart, because that was Meg's heart. So she reaches in the chest and just pulls the fucking thing out. And then the best thing, and it's like, there's behind the scenes footage, and I've seen part of it, but it's like, it's hard to tell how they actually pulled this off because it looks amazing. But she apparently has tissue rejection, as Dr. West calls it. Yeah. And she basically just starts falling apart.
Yeah, it looks cool.
And it looked great. I mean, it looks fucking real. Like, her head goes up like that and starts, and then her arms start falling off, and like she just starts falling apart at the seams, and it's just like a fucking, it's a great effect.
And of course, that really doesn't make sense, because the zombies that he created in the first movie are still running around, and they weren't rejecting. Must have been the new serum or something that he was making.
Because this was a different serum.
And they were also different body parts. Different people and different animals and man put together. So that must have been what he was talking about.
Yeah, because I think that was the big difference. In the first one, he was just reanimating like a dead person that was all one piece. In this one, he was specifically trying to animate pieces separately and then put them all together and, you know, animate them as one body. It's a good one, though.
It's a good one.
Like I said, I don't like it as much as the first one, and I think it doesn't get it gets kind of more mixed reviews than the first one, because I mean, everybody loves the first one. This one has a little more mixed reviews, but because it's a little bit different.
The first one, actually, like you said, was a simple movie, and it kind of had kind of a weird element of plausibility to it. Yeah. This one, they would said, "No, fuck the plausibility. Let's just top it and make it even crazier."
Yeah, this one
the third one's even crazier than that. Yeah. But I liked them all.
I did too.
I liked them all.
I mean, this one, like I said, they're not super worried about continuity with the first one. They're not super. I mean, it's kind of continuous with the first one, but not really. There's like some characters that are dead that come back and blah blah blah.
It's as good as the Phantasm series.
Oh yeah, It's, you know, easily. Yeah. It's kind of a different thing.
We got to see the Phantasm series again too. That was a good one.
Yeah, we've done the first one and the second one on the show, right? I was gonna do 3, 4, and 5 because I think Shudder has all of them.
I want to see them again.
Yeah. I like every single one.
Didn't I buy a set of that?
You might have. Or like I said, Shudder has most of them.
Shudder has most of them.
Or they did last time.
Maybe we saw them on Shudder.
Yeah, we might have. Right. But so this one, it's like the gore is way more over the top. It's crazier than the first one because, like I said, you could tell they were just having a good time trying to like think of like the nuttiest thing they could think of and trying to like top the first one. So in that sense, if you're really into gore and you're really into body horror and shit like that, you definitely need to see this, especially if you're a fan of like practical effects and stuff, because there's some really good shit in this.
Had I seen it back in the day as a sequel, me and my boys, we would not have been, we would have liked it. Yeah. We wouldn't have been disappointed.
Yeah, because like I said, it gives you more of what you wanted. Right. It's like you can tell that it's slightly different. The tone is slightly different. It's a different director.
It was the context of the time, though.
Yeah. It's in the same wheelhouse, though.
Yeah, this was more close to what we were looking for, actually. So it got closer to what it was that we liked. Yeah. Yeah, so, we would have loved it.
And like I said, I think it's worth it just, I mean, even if fucking Jeffrey Combs wasn't awesome and everything like that, I think it's worth it just for that fucking part at the end where the bride falls apart. Because that looks fucking fantastic. And that's like some of the best like gore effects.
It's a great tequila movie. I tried.
Tom gives this 4 tequilas out of 5. But so anyway, like all the Re-Animator movies are good, so obviously you should check them all out. This one, Shudder just added it a couple weeks ago, which is why we decided to go ahead and review it, since we already did the first one and the third one, so we figured we'd do the one in the middle. So check it out, Bride of Re-Animator, 1990.